The Last of Us 2 is a direct sequel to 2013's The Last of Us, a game that garnered widespread acclaim from critics and the gaming community. The first game was praised for its visual detail, the voice acting, and most importantly, for its gripping story. So, after a 7-year wait, the sequel has finally arrived, surrounded by a whole lot of controversy due to a major leak that occurred that divided the fans of the franchise. So here are my thoughts on it after 2 full playthroughs. If I were to purely rate this game on its technical prowess, this would be the easiest 10 out of 10 I could give. Every area you visit throughout your 25 to 30 hour campaign is oozing with visual storytelling. Whether you are trudging through a snowstorm, exploring downtown Seattle, or sneaking through an overgrown forest, there is a real beauty to this broken and harsh world. The level of high quality is also present in the cutscenes and the motion capture in the game. Gameplay to cutscene and vice versa is pretty damn seamless. The voice acting and the motion capture performances are at peak quality here. They're some of the best I have ever seen in a video game, or just in anything ever.
Fuck, this is awkward.
I'm messing with you, man. I don't care. Get dressed.
You're the worst.
It's kind of fucked up you did that.
The game also portrays emotions of the enemies you'll face in terrifying detail, whether them reacting to one of their friends or their dog dying.
It's Maggie! Someone took her out! Someone's out there!
Oh, Jesus! Please, no.
To the sheer looks of fear and desperation on their faces.
All right, just... You don't have to do this. Please.
This being a Naughty Dog game, it does have some standout set pieces, but let me be very clear, this is not Uncharted. The set pieces in this game are very far and in between, but when they are present, they are absolutely breathtaking. The game also has top-notch sound design. Look, I'm no expert when it comes to breaking down specifics of sound design, but from what little I know, I can say that the ambient soundscape and your weapons especially, in different situational circumstances, like whether you're outside or in a tunnel, are pretty impressive. The sound also plays a huge part in unsettling you as a player, ranging from the heartbreaking squirms of dogs being shot, the desperate gasps of breath, and the painful screams that your enemies leave behind as they get stabbed, shot, or dismembered. And the spine-chilling sounds of the clickers. The game has an impressive array of layered soundscapes. If you enjoyed the gameplay in the first game, you'll enjoy the gameplay in this game, because it's mostly the same with some minor new additions added in. I was happy with the new additions that this game offered, but at the same time I wasn't blown away by any of it. There is a prone option now, so you can hide in foliage. This opens up more stealth opportunities in the game, and the game also added a dedicated jump button. In my honest opinion, it felt pretty useless. There's no real major reason for this game to have a jump button, albeit some minor platforming sections. The game also has a dodge feature, which is a welcome addition. This made the close quarters combat much more visceral and exhilarating. The shooting feels a lot more responsive and smoother compared to the first game, which is always a good sign. In regards to enemy variation, sadly the game lacks in that department. There is one new infected enemy type apart from a unique boss you'll face later on in the game, which I won't talk about here because spoilers. The new infected type is called the Shamblers. They are tanky and they spew acid everywhere. In regards to the human enemies, there are 2 groups, the WLF or the Washington Liberation Front and the Scars. The WLF is your typical human faction. They're armed with standard weapons, but some of the groups have dogs that can sniff you out, which forces you to approach some encounters differently. The other faction, the Scars, is much more interesting to face, because they mostly rely on bows and melee weapons. In combat encounters, the Scars prefer a stealthier approach, and they communicate using this weird whistling language, which is pretty unsettling. The story in this game is where it went downhill for me. It wasn't because of the type of story that Neil Druckmann tried to tell, it was because of the way he executed it. The game dumps down characters for the sake of moving the plot along, it heavily relies on flashbacks, and it has way too much on its plate. The narrative this game attempts to tell is pretty ambitious, so I'll give him credit for that. But unfortunately it fails to deliver, due to its heavy-handed and padded storytelling. especially in the second half of the game. The story has some genuinely great moments littered throughout the game.
You want to see something spectacular? You're gonna point at your face, aren't you? Nothing is that spectacular. Oh, brother. Come on, stupid.
But as a whole unit, the game fails to stand on its own. The game also strips any semblance of hope or the light at the end of the tunnel feeling that the first game had in order to portray a depressing and dark tale about revenge and its consequences. All the story issues combined resulted in an ending that left me disappointed and confused. Don't get me wrong, the ending itself made sense from a narrative standpoint when it came to getting across the message that the game tried to tell, but it just left me feeling hollow and miserable, undermining the entire journey and some major decisions made by characters prior to the game's finale. So, in conclusion, through my eyes, The Last of Us 2 is a colossal disappointment. Neil Druckmann successfully conveyed his point through the game though. He said this game is about hate, and this game nails that point home. But in the end, it just boiled down to being a stylistically directed, powerfully acted, by-the-numbers revenge story, riddled with pacing issues, with unlikable and uninteresting characters. It's a 6 out of 10 for me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.
Ellie, I think Shimmer's getting sick. What? How can you tell? She sounds a little hoarse. Oh, boy.